the questions Kenyans ask is not how we lost so many lives. It's how, after so many lives were lost, there was almost no accountability for those lives.
Hey there, and welcome to Fanya Mambo Africa. Always an exciting time on this show. And see who's back with us, Fanya Mambo himself. How are you?
I'm very, very, very well, thank you.
It's been a very busy week and wild news actually because of the Pope.
It felt like it was an extension of Easter. There has been so much concentration on the Catholic Church and the Pope and his death and his burial. So it's been one week that has taken back to that. It took us back to that mood of church. And Easter was so much about church. Then people felt like they had left that space. But then the death of the Pope, which was unfortunate, but also it's a death to celebrate. Eight years is good. Eight years is a blessing. So may he rest in peace. That's all we can say.
Yeah, may he rest. And it was beautiful to see that he brought world leaders again on the same space on his burial. What would you say stood out for you during the whole funeral period?
First and foremost, the organization. The putting 250,000 people together in one space. And there's no commotion and there's no chaos and there's no, that organization for me was excellent. And it's not like a wedding where you have 6 months to plan. A burial, they have to bury the Pope between 4 to 6 days from the time he dies. So the fact that within that short period, 4 to 6 days, they were able to plan that meticulously, not just the sitting arrangement, but even the progression, the processions, how they were moving with the casket from here to this other place. You'd think they'd been rehearsing for a year. So I must give it up to them and must say one of the things that stood out for me the most was organization, plus also protocol. I mean, so many world leaders attended, apart from some that I do not want to mention today who appeared stranded in suits on a Saturday and people wondering, what are these lost people doing on the streets of Rome? The bulk of those leaders who had been invited, because I tend to think those who invited themselves are the ones who found themselves in very funny situations. But the bulk of those who invited, you could see Trump, you could see Zelensky, you could see some of the world leaders, and you could see how they were received. The hosts expected them. They hosted them well, they received them well, they accorded them the dignitary and respect and security that was due to them as leaders. And so I must commend the Vatican for their exceptional planning skills. Yes.
And one of the photos that has stood out during that time was the photo that was taken between Zelensky and Trump having a conversation. What would be your imagination of what the two, because it was just the two of them seated very close to each other. What would you imagine they were talking about?
Zelensky is not at war with Trump. That needs to be very, very clear. We have not had, or has anybody had breaking news that Ukraine is fighting with the United States? They are not at war. Those two countries are not fighting about anything. So why would there be enmity? And so for them to have a conversation, for them to have that kind of dialogue, for me, I think it's good so that Trump is able to pick up what's happening on that side, and Zelensky is also able to hear, hey, Trump, it's been 1.5 months now, umetesa dunia, what's going on? So I think it was good, it was healthy, because there is no known war between the two, and we pray that none comes up.
And now that the whole idea of a peace process between the warring countries, that is Russia and Ukraine, and of course Trump has been the key leader trying to bring peace, and we've had reports that there is progress towards that. What would you make of this conversation towards achieving of this peace between the two nations?
First and foremost, I said it before and I'll say it again on this show. Nothing can end the war between Russia and Ukraine other than dialogue. You try the bombs, they've been there. I mean, come up with new weapons. In 2030, we shall have even newer weapons. So it makes no sense to go back to the fighting bush again. And what will end the war ultimately is a conversation. And so if these people are having a conversation, if they can sit down and write an agreement, then we shall have an end to war. So we are on the right track. The fact that conversations are going on is better than having a place where one person thinks they can come with weapons and completely finish the other one, or as some fools would say, wipe them from the face of the earth. Yeah.
Very interesting. Locally now, again, the death of the Pope being he's a world leader, technically. Number two, he's the leader of the Catholic Church worldwide. And of course, that necessitated having masses across different nations, and Kenya wasn't left behind. And during that mass where people were celebrating his life, we saw many leaders present, but one key leader who stood out is the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. What did you make of his presence and how the videos we saw of him and people interaction?
First and foremost, you cannot put a good man down. And you cannot take away goodness and warmth and happiness from a man. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is one guy you try so hard to hate and then you find it very difficult. It's hard. Kenyans love him. It's organic. He has not told people, he's not going out there to charm people. In fact, he's not even made efforts to go and tell people, you guys have to like me. He just attends mass and not knowing the whole population. Very many people came to him. In fact, I remember even at the parking, even some elected senators were just craving to shake his hands and have a conversation with him. I saw JB Moturi trying to speak with former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. So let's just say that Uhuru carries a lot of warmth in him and a lot of charisma in him. And people love him for who he is. Forget about what he did or what he did not do.
Because I was going
in fact,
to
those
ask,
things people remember them.
Do you think we have forgotten that he played a part in getting Kenya to where we are today?
I'll tell you this. Many people think of Uhuru the person before they think of him the president. Because he was humane. And he remains humane. And he remains kind and loving and accepting to people. And he's the only one president alikuwa anaongea mahali unasikia people saying, Uhuru, we love you. And then he would say, I love you too. Because that's him. So people love him for his personality. Remove the presidency from him, Uhuru is a likable person. And he's warm and he doesn't plan malice. There are people who sit and simply, literally plan evil and execute evil. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is not like that. He has no malice in his heart. I think, for the lack of a better description, Uhuru is like a child. His heart is like the heart of a child. The way mnakosana na mtoto sahi and then after 3 minutes the child is talking to you. Uhuru carries that kind of heart. And that's why people follow him and that's why people love him.
Is he still the leader of Jubilee Party?
Well, we have not heard of his exit.
So he's still leading the party?
He has not told people that he has left Jubilee Party. So for now, we continue to say that he is still the leader of Jubilee Party until he tells people otherwise.
Okay. Now, that leads me to the next question. If he's still the Jubilee Party leader, which has Jeremiah Kioni as the Secretary General.
Yes.
And with that, we saw the arrival of the return of former CS Dr. Fred Matiangi back in the country. And word has it that Matiangi wants to go for the top seats. So what is the politics that is between Matiangi, Uhuru, and then we have had Gachagua saying he's had discussions with Matiangi. So what are we reading at this point?
First and foremost, who is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta? Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is the person who allows democracy to thrive. William Ruto formed UDA when he was in Jubilee. And he was campaigning for UDA when he was a Jubilee elected deputy president. And he went around the country popularizing UDA, yet he was the deputy president elected on a Jubilee ticket. That tells you Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has allowed the people within Jubilee, read Jeremiah Kioni and the others, to choose how they would want their party to go, as opposed to him coming and saying, I am the president, I have decided. When we first heard of Matiangi, I saw Jeremiah Kioni on TV saying that they have decided to have Matiangi as their presidential candidate. Is that an Uhuru decision? We are yet to know. But from where I sit, Uhuru is the kind of person who has allowed people to make decisions. And he allows parties to run. And you can see that from how Jubilee, there were so many people who were within Jubilee, they kept insulting him from inside. but he allowed them to be. So let us not rubber stamp it as an Uhuru decision until he comes and says it's his decision. Let us take it as a Jubilee party decision, and let us see how the organs of the party and everything falls out. And we are happy to see if Matiangi happens to be their preferred presidential candidate, he is welcome to the race. All I can tell him is several other people have declared interest, and each of them has elicited a different kind of emotion. Some have declared, like him, there was excitement among some certain quarters. Some people obviously oppose him. You cannot declare you want to be president and then everybody says yes. Even Mandela never got 100% of the votes cast. There are people who will cast against you. So, of course, he's one of the few who've been mentioned. I mean, we've had many others. We know President William Ruto has declared he's running again. So let them come. Let them come. Let's hear even 20 names, and then Kenyans will make up their minds.
But from his, former CS, Dr. Matiangi was part of the government for 8 years. Is it 8-10? So from what he had and where we are today as a country, what would you look at as a Matiangi presidency? I mean, if Kenyans were to elect him, because it's the people who have the power.
People tend to compare Matiangi with one late our neighboring president. What was his name? Magufuli. John Pombe Magufuli. People tend to compare him a lot with Magufuli. They feel that Matiangi is a bulldozer. They feel that Matiangi gets things done. They believe that Matiangi is a no-nonsense man, and so many other things have been attributed to him. Obviously, there are records he will not get away from. When he was CS for Interior, there have been complaints about the number of people who died at that time. Are they attributable to Matiangi? Maybe not. But was he in charge of Interior at some point? Yes. And did people die when he was in charge of Interior? Yes. So that's why it's a mixed bag. It's not, there are those candidates you say, yes, no scandal to this name. Matiangi will have a lot of work to do to prove to people that he was not involved in the death of those people.
When now I think about it, is the Interior seat a poisoned chalice?
No, it's not.
Because there was Matiangi, there's now the Deputy President, Kindiki.
I've always told people that the police exist to protect lives. It wouldn't matter. It would matter, yes, but the questions Kenyans ask is not how we lost so many lives. It's how, after so many lives were lost, there was almost no accountability for those lives. Say, for example, like in the US, people die every day. In fact, when you read and Google about crime rate in the US, or in places like South Africa, it is higher than we have it here. The difference, and that's what makes you a good Interior CS, is what follows post-crime. Today, a young girl is beaten up, raped, and their body is found mutilated and beheaded. And then it becomes another story. We talk of femicide like it's one of the verbs or one of the nouns in the dictionary, like it's a very good thing. If you're a good Interior CS, people will not blame you for how many human beings were killed. They'll blame you for how you reacted to how many human beings were killed. Because this is what I mean. A man sharing a bed with his wife at night may decide to kill the wife at night, God forbid. And we cannot have the Interior CS and the policemen coming to every bedroom and protecting every husband and wife from one another. But how you deal with a husband who killed the wife and make sure that justice is seen to have been done very swiftly and very decisively and very firmly is what makes you a good or bad Interior CS. Because I can tell you, human interactions are so many. Right now as we speak, there's a guy on a border somewhere doing his own thing. There's another one. How do you stop those people from harming one another as government? You cannot have a policeman manning every transaction. You get what I mean? You can't. But as Interior CS, you can use what people do as a lesson. So that for a man who decides to commit femicide, kill a woman, behead them like what we saw, and do all such, make sure that that guy becomes a living example. make sure that the wheels of the prosecutorial arms of government work so efficiently and so swiftly that people will say it has failed at the judiciary, if it ever fails. But let it never be said that your arms as the person in charge of interior failed. So crime will be there, things will happen, but the difference between Kenya and the US is not that there is crime. Is how we respond to crime, is how we react to crime, is how we bring the perpetrators to book, and it is how you see prominent people. You've seen even musicians, famous people, serving jail terms. And that serves as a very, very, very good example. So what we are saying is interior is not jinxed. It is how you go about handling those who commit crimes.
I hope they get that message because it is very critical for the nation at where we are today. Okay, now that we were talking about people who want to run for the president, in a recent interview, the former impeached deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, has declared that he is also going for the top seat and that he's launching his party towards the end of this month, coming month of May. What is your take on that? And why would he be so confident when there is still a case in court?
First and foremost, we have had President William, then he was deputy president, and President Uhuru Kenyatta, elected into office when they were facing crimes against humanity charges in 2013. I think we tend to forget very quickly. So when you compare a case of crimes against humanity with a case of impeachment before court, I think one is sleep and the other one is death, in terms of magnitude. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, in all fairness, should be allowed to vie for the presidency because the matter is still in court and the court has not declared that he was actually impeached on proper grounds. The courts have not pronounced themselves. Human beings have, legislators, parliamentarians. In the political process, he's impeached. In the legal realm, he's not yet been impeached until his matters are conclusively heard and determined, and the court says that Rigathi Gachagua stands impeached. You remember Kawira Mwangaza? I am happy that her case went all the way. I am happy that she was reinstated. I am happy that she continued serving for some time until the court gives their final pronunciation. I pray that what was done to Kawira Mwangaza, that latitude, that leeway, that benefit of you are not guilty until proven guilty, be given to Rigathi Gachagua, so that he's allowed his democratic right to participate in these elections as a candidate unless the court so declares that he is now unfit to hold public office. And since those matters are in court, we allow them to go through court.
Do you think Kenyans would be okay having him as a president? This is, of course, it's a hypothesis because we don't speak for 55 million.
I'll answer you. I think Kenyans vote for who they want to vote for.
True.
They woke up one day and left Peter Kenneth and voted for Sonko. Left Jim Nambaru and they voted for Sonko. Kenyans vote for who they want to vote for. And I usually ask people, who is the right person to ask whether Rigathi Gachagua is popular? And I am answered, it is the guy on the bus. You see a guy in a bus going to work. You see a guy polishing shoes on the side of the road. You see another one selling fish. You see another one pushing a mkokoteni. Ask those people, if an election was held today, would you vote for Rigathi Gachagua? And the reason I say we ask those people is because for sure those people vote. And it's because for sure they make sure that what they think they take to the ballot. If those people tell you they'll vote for him, then it's a yes. They tell you no, then it's a no. He is pulling such organic crowds, I'm thoroughly afraid. How do you fight a guy who wakes up, goes to a church, and then by the time he's coming out, a market is full and he's not mobilizing? And he's saying one term and people are repeating one term after him. You'd be foolish to fight such a guy. I think this is the time to sit. And I have told people, Fanya Mambo has learned one interesting lesson. Unlearning what you have learned. When Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was in government, I had schooled myself to believe that he was like William Ruto and that he was a bad man and that he was against our people and so on and so forth. But I'm beginning to unlearn that because I am seeing the kind of fight he's put up against William Ruto. So everybody has to unlearn what they have learned and to start saying, wait a minute, how do you go? This is a tsunami. How do you fight against Rigathi Gachagua on the political realm today?
What makes you think he can make a good president out of curiosity?
We are not talking about him making a good or bad president.
No, I'm
What we are
just
talking
asking.
about is he going to be elected if he was to vie today? And I can tell you, the number of ballots that would read his name would shock very many Kenyans.
Still,
So I have accepted.
What makes you think he would make a good president?
Let me tell you one
if
thing.
elected.
Let me tell you one thing. That is now on the other side, from democracy to governance. Because elections is democracy. And governance is a different story altogether. Why do we elect people into office? Because it is only when they are in office that they are able to prove to us whether they are good or bad. You cannot be saying so-and-so can make a horrible wife and you've never married that person. You only know if they are a good wife once you live with them or a good husband. So I would hate to be the devil's advocate and to say he will make a bad president or he'll make a good president. I think people are known as to whether they would make a good chef once they've made a meal and it's on the table. Then you're able to taste. They say the proof of pudding is eating.
You know, there could be a different arguments with different leaders. People knew Mandela would be a good president even before he became a president.
It's debatable because there were violent demonstrations during Mandela's reign, by the way.
Yeah, there were.
Against him. So it is not cut out very clearly. And why I say Mandela ended up being the president he was, to some they say he was very good, to some they say he was bad. People are expecting, having fought against the white man for this long, he was going to come and the first thing, he was going to take all the white highlands and give them back to the black people. Something he never did and something for which South Africans have never forgiven him. So is Mandela a good president? To the white people who retained their land, he's the best. And to the people who believe in constitutionalism today and lack of revenge, Mandela is the best. To the people who were expecting to be given back that land, Mandela is a bad president. So would Rigathi Gachagua make a good president? If he came today and removed cartels, all cartels would call him bad. And all the people who are fighting against cartels would call him good. So depending on where Kenyans are sitting, and some Kenyans sit on a very selfish podium, Rigathi Gachagua will be judged not by his work, but by interests of the people that he's going to lead, if he does become president. Because there is Matiangi, there is the ones who declare. Omutata. I've heard even my good friend Natembea might vie. He hasn't declared yet, but people are proposing his name. And you know that's where it starts. So let us wait and see.
Let's wait and see. Interestingly, we've seen I think it was last week, leaders from Meru, which is the larger Mount Kenya East, who had been seen in State House just a few months ago, maybe even weeks. Now we've seen them swing towards, they've gone to the Wamunyoro location again.
The Mbas is not aligned.
The Mbas has gone. Linturi, I don't know what party he holds, but I mean, these leaders cannot be ignored. They have, even the Embu former Lenny Kivuti, I don't know which party he is. They've all now decided to move. Like, as young people look at these leaders, what is the sanctity of political parties and how people make decisions? Number two, is it worth having political parties if today I will be on the Ruto side, tomorrow, not on principle or anything, I am with Gachagua? Like, what are we teaching our young people?
I'll explain to every young person who is looking at me today. But I have had to sit up because this is extremely important. I want you to, from wherever you are, close your eyes for a minute and imagine the year 1999. In the year 1999, President Moi is sitting on this seat as president. Who are the people in the room? Raila Amolo Odinga is in that room. George Saitoti is in that room. Kalonzo Musyoka is in that room. William Ruto is in that room. Wetangula may have been somewhere at the back there, but he was in that room. Mudavadi was closer, but he was in that room. Out goes President Moi, in comes President Kibaki. Before the 205 referendum, who is in that room? Now Moi is out, Kibaki is sitting here. Raila is in that room. Mudavadi is in that room. Kalonzo is in that room. Wetangula now maybe has moved closer, he's in that room. Kalonzo, so they are in that room. And fast forward, and Uhuru was also in that room, by the way. Very important for that to know, and Ruto was in that room. Fast forward, Kibaki leaves, and who sits on this seat? Now, I want you to check the trend. When Moi left, a person who had constantly been in that room, Kibaki comes. When Kibaki leaves, now comes a person who has been in this room. Who? Uhuru. Now Uhuru is sitting here. Who is in that room? Mudavadi is in that room. Wetangula is in that room. Kalonzo is in that room. Ruto is in that room. You get what I mean? So Uhuru sits, he's done with his 10 years. Uhuru exits. Who sits on this chair? Another man who was in that room. Ruto now, who was part of that room, moves from where he was sitting in the room and sits here. Now Ruto is president. We are in 2024, 2025. Who is in that room? Raila is in that room. Mudavadi is in that room. Wetangula is in that room. Kalonzo is not in that room, but he's somewhere. If they needed him, he would be in that room. And so on and so forth. And if Ruto leaves, I am afraid that the next president could come from somebody who is in that room. What I'm trying to tell young people is, I wish I could fight with history. But I think it's becoming increasingly clear that what young people need to do is to make sure that they're in that room. Because the problem is history is so stubborn. It's teaching us that those people who are becoming president and sitting on this seat have been in that room. And they're always in that room. I was wishing as Fanya Mambo Kinuthia that we would wake up one day, all of us, and create a new set of people in that room. Is it looking likely? The very same young people I was marshalling and telling we shall have one of our own go to every rally where Raila is. They are saying Baba 2027. Every rally where we have Rigathi Gachagua, they are telling him go for the presidency. Those young people. Every meeting where we have Eugene Wamalwa or even Matiangi when he starts doing his thing, those young people we have been telling we need to go into that room are telling these leaders who are part of that room that they will make them president. And I can bet you that if a young person today vies for presidency, and these people who've been in that room vie for presidency, the bulk of Kenyans will vote for a man or a woman who has been in that room.
Isn't
so let us
why
struggle,
we went out in June 2024?
Let us struggle to be wise and to send some of our young people into that room. There is a bet, let me tell you. It would be good for us to have our own presidential candidate. Do not get me wrong. I would even offer myself if that opportunity was available. But even as we do that, let us be strategic. Let us start saying we are pursuing the big one, but let us deprive these people in that room of the faces they are used to. And how do we do that? The 290 MPs we are going to vote, we must refuse to vote back MPs who are supporting the suppression of Kenyans. People who voted for finance bill, people who have voted for atrocious things against Kenyans in this country. If you deny them the vote, they evict from that room. And once they exit from that room, we make sure that we send the young people. I've told the young people, the easiest thing to do is let us as Gen Zs and millennials do a list of 290 young men and women who are progressive and throw them into parliament. Do you know what that will do? It will change that room. It's true. And once you change that room, now you can change the politics of the country. Stop gunning for the presidency right now, young people, if you can hear me. Let us organize at constituency level. We say there's a new tribe in Kenya, and that new tribe is called young, brilliant Kenyans. Not just young Kenyans who can't read and write. brilliant young Kenyans, and let us take 290 fresh brains into parliament and replace them with, then now that room will be populated by those ones. And I can assure you, once we have controlled that room, one of us will be president.
And in addition to that, there's the 47 women reps.
Yes.
In that room.
Yes, in the 47 women reps. That's easy. Oh, we have beautiful young girls with brains, smart, eloquent. They mean well for this country. Forget the horrible ones. Don't choose the horrible ones. Just concentrate on those beautiful, brilliant young ladies who mean well for Kenya. And they have demonstrated it by their sacrifice right now. Let us choose 47. It's not so hard. Just 47 nice ones. And then from there now, we shall control the politics of this country.
Very interesting insights there. And in line with that, again, Uhuru Kenyatta, former president, I think, again, just the day before he was seen during the Pope Francis Mass, he had spoken somewhere telling young people they're in charge and they're the ones that will change this country. What message is he exactly saying? Because that's just on the basis. Gen Z, you're the ones in charge to change this country. What message is he sending out? And yet also, I mean, he's part of Jubilee, which we have said is supporting Matiangi. You've given an analogy of maybe not concentrate here, but where it matters. But what is he telling people?
He's telling young people that anarchy is not a solution. Vote. You have a very strong weapon, and it's called the vote. He's telling young people that if you want those guys up there to listen to you, vie you as young people for those seats. Elect one another. Empower your own young people to go there. Do you know the president has no choice but to work with the people that you elect to parliament? And so what President Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to tell young people, you have hosted our honorable Senator Anyang here on this show, and severally he's told you what they did as Gen Zs. I remember one moving show when he's talked about 1982 and what happened to them post the coup, the attempted coup, and what they did, what was their contribution as Gen Zs, that now they were incarcerated. Some of them were killed, some of them disappeared, some of them were maimed, and so on and so forth. So he's just telling the Gen Zs of today that their June 2025 we shall never forget. But let it also be known to them, because we had not told them the history, that in 1982 the Onyonkas stood. In 1992, the Matibas stood. They were not Gen Zs then, but they were young people who went to the streets and they clamored for multi-party democracy. And many of them were shot. And it was during the time of brutal GSU. It was not a police service, it was a police force. Fanya fujo uone was what they used to say. And then 1997, Orengo came up with Mageuzi, and very many young people joined him and offered their lives and blood and sweat. So what he is trying to tell the young people is that they have committed no crime and that they've not done anything new that has not been done in the past. It's just that maybe it may not have occurred to them that younger people in the past also really lost their lives and limb and livelihoods, and they gave their best for the country.
Okay.
So that's what he's telling them.
Very interesting to hear that from a former president. You know, sometimes I wonder, do you think the former president has meetings with the current president in terms of caring for what happens in Kenya? Because when he addresses us young people, it's interesting, he's been in power and he knows literally everyone who's in power. So what you're saying, we have the power to vote yes, but we can only wait until 2027. He's in a position where he can call the leaders today and maybe call them to, sobriety.
There's a meeting and then there's a meeting of minds.
Well,
if Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were to meet today, that would be a physical meeting. Would their minds meet? No. Because Uhuru was not lying to us. He told us things as they were. Sometimes it made him not so popular, but he told us things as they were. How do you meet someone who thinks totally the opposite of how you think? As long as your minds don't meet, then it's a useless meeting. It's a waste of time. So a meeting of minds is what is needed. And Uhuru Kenyatta knows that he and William Ruto can never have a meeting of minds. They are at cross purposes in life. And that is why people are now gravitating more towards Uhuru Kenyatta, because they've realized, even when he told them that my deputy is not fit to be president, he meant well for the nation.
Wow. In line with the involvement of the young people, the BBC, I don't know if you've watched, they've released a documentary that shows the whole idea of the way the cops who actually shot, and it's sad to see the KDF were part of it. That is very depressing and sad to imagine that people who are supposed to protect us, the citizens and the nation, actually attacked young people and killed. Not just attacked, shot at close range, young people and killed. The other thing I would want to ask, is this also being released because maybe our president has decided to swing back towards China? We're coming to the China conversation, but is it in any relationship?
First and foremost, the right to information cannot be attributable to anything. Our media here has tried under very difficult circumstances. In fact, in a very long time, the media has never been where it is, because there's a lot of deliberate attempts at gagging them. You've seen what is happening to Standard Group right now, just because of their headlines. And they are true headlines anyway. So that deliberate attempt at gagging the media has made BBC come. And I want to congratulate BBC for bringing out the truth. I wish they were saying there's a guy called Martin who shot Gen Zs, but then they were lying. We find out that there was no guy called Martin and there was no Gen Z shot. But when they come and say there was a certain corporal, and they give the name and they say this person shot somebody on this day at this place, and it is true, why should anybody be annoyed? We have a right to that information because it is true. If you say it is divisive, it is not the information that is divisive. It is the shooting and killing of young people that is divisive. So what they have done is they have come out clearly. They have aired out what should have been aired out that the others had tried to conceal. And I have always told this administration, you will never kill a human being and get away with it. The truth has to come out. God reveals. And I'm telling you, even the over 200 bodies that have been missing and the people that we don't know where they are, one day in due course, God will make sure. Hata kama hatatumia BBC, maybe he'll use Al Jazeera or something else. But the truth about where they were buried, if they were buried, and where they are located, if they are there, will come out, and their families will celebrate because the truth has come out. It will be painful to know that maybe some of them are dead because we don't know where they are. Even the police commissioner said, hajui wako wapi, which is very interesting. But the truth will come out one day. You hide it the way you want. The truth is like pregnancy. After some time, it will be visible. So it will come out, and it will be a shame. And I thank God that the truth has come out. BBC, wherever you are, hats off. We thank you for bringing out the truth. If the young people made mistakes, let it be aired. If the government made mistakes, let it be aired. I wouldn't blame KDF.
Sorry for cutting you short, but I want you to tie this with what has been going on in the last, say, 1 month. There was the NIS director speaking, and there was General Kahariri saying that we can't, whatever you say Ruto must go must be within the constitution. So when you tie that, and even President Ruto said we need to keep off our conversations of KDF, then we see that. What are we reading?
First and foremost, Kahariri was not the general when this happened. So he may have been limited in that time. Because you see, the army follows orders, and it's very hierarchical. So if Kahariri was not in charge of the army, today if we ask him about questions that time, he was not in command. It's not like in civilian terms where sometimes we don't even respect our bosses, we do what we want, and we can have things. For the army, really, orders must flow from one place all the way down. So we'll excuse the general for this. I mean, he at that time was having a senior rank, but he was not in a decision-making position in as far as sending our army to the streets to go and kill anybody, if the army did kill anybody. And so when you tie that up now with what is happening today, all I would say, these are just signs of what we have told you, a horrible administration. When you, for example, have HIV and AIDS, you'll be having diarrhea, you have a cough here, you have malaria, and you keep saying, oh, leo ni malaria, oh, leo ni cough, leo ni diarrhea. But the truth is, you're having all these opportunistic infections because you have HIV AIDS. We are having all the problems we are having because we have the wrong president in power. And when you have the wrong president in power, mwambia mtakuwa mnaongea sha, you finish, you go, you'll have a conversation about NHIF, you finish, you'll have a conversation about university funding model, about the army, about killing Gen Zs. You will have so many bad conversations because you have the wrong head of state in place. Those countries that are having the right head of state in place, like Traore now, Burkina Faso, are beginning to have different conversations. Why isn't Rwanda having the conversations we are having? Why isn't Rwanda having a conversation about health, about education, about school fees, about governance, about abductions? Why are they not having those conversations? It's because the leader is of a different mind frame. So I've always told people, once you're done complaining about everything that is happening, because the killing of Gen Zs is one item in the many maladies that have been committed by this administration, you will have very many other conversations. Very many others. Right now, there's a back to school. Parents are stressed. They don't have money. They don't know how they'll take their kids back to school. Government is not putting capitation into schools. Boom.
Wow. Anyway, switching gears, the president was in China. One, I would want to hear your thoughts on this. Two, how this is going to affect, because it looks like now we have stopped looking west and we've switched to the east, how that is going to affect our relations.
I want you to pull out your newspapers or just go online and search that one day Kenya woke up and eCitizen had lost 15 billion in one night. You know, like a sneeze, 15 billion, gone one night. Why would you hold Sudanese rebels here and lose trade worth 5 billion in terms of tea exports to Sudan? First, retain the 5 billion. Why do we have bad manners of first losing what we are making? Because literally our tea has been stuck in Mombasa for some time now. It cannot go to Sudan because we made bad decisions to have RSF here. And Sudan is angry with us. They told us the other day they had put, was it 46 billion in treasury bills from what had been collected from affordable housing? Why didn't we take this 40 billion and put it where we would have put the money that went into T-bills? Why did we do that? If we are able to collect 40 billion from housing and not allocate it to housing and put it on the papers shamelessly that it has gone to T-bills.
How is this going to affect our relations now with the West? If
Again,
there is any effect by the
think about it this way. Is Tanzania, is Uganda, is China, is Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, are they making those trips to China and the US? No. Is the economy of China, Tanzania growing? Check. Very well. Is the Rwandese economy growing? Yes. Is the Ugandan economy improving? Yes. The solutions to the problems that bedevil Kenya are not outside of our borders. They are within our borders. All the problems that bedevil us, the bulk of the solutions are within this country. What I wish was happening is we were having a conversation of, instead of importing the toothpicks from China, let us import the small machine that makes toothpicks, because we have bamboo here and because we have trees. Instead of importing underwear from China, let us have a conversation of how we can have a small factories here that are making underwear for our people. So let us not look at, what are you telling us when you tell us you are coming with money to build a road from China? What do we need that money for? Ati pesa ya kujenga Navy Bridge inatoka China. I can tell you the economy of Meru is so strong, so robust. The taxation from the people of Meru is enough to build Navy Bridge. And I want to be corrected by anybody who tells me that Meru cannot raise 5 billion. The people of Meru, in fact, if today we had walked to KCB Bank, forget China, Equity, National Bank, Family Bank, and told them, just lend the county government of Meru or the national government 5 billion. And then let us build that Navy Bridge. And then once we are done with the Navy Bridge, let us come up with a toll fee. It can even be allocated to that particular bank. I assure you, they will collect enough from that bridge. If today they just wanted a partnership with any bank in this country, I know most banks can somehow be able to raise 5 billion. And they can build that bridge and come up with a partnership with the bank. And if you ask the people of Meru, they will tell you, instead of having taxes now instead of having debts increasing for us as a nation, we are okay with just having a toll station there. And we pay until that bank is paid in full. There's a lot of money here that we haven't tapped. We don't have leaders. If today I was president and I needed to build a bridge anywhere, even in Tana River, I would have a conversation with banks that are there. And believe you me, same bridge being built by a private investor will cost half the amount. But when it's government, somehow prices become abnormal. That's why you had people selling wheelbarrows for 100,000. But when they are buying their own wheelbarrows at home, they buy them for 7,000.
They told us they were non-carcinogenic, if I remember. And it's interesting that you're giving figures of Meru, which I think even without going to the bank, I think Meru, considering the amount of money that
Meru is wealthy.
brings,
Meru is wealthy.
That county would do something.
Meru is wealthy.
So out of all these deals that you've read about, which one stands out for you? SGR expansion to Malaba?
Again, I ask, why do we need the Chinese to expand our SGR to Malaba? Forget Malaba. Between Naivasha, where it is right now, and Nakuru is less than 100 kilometers. Having a serious conversation, people keep saying Kenya is indebted. Do you know that we owe more to our local banks than we owe to foreigners? Our local debt is higher. If you just sit with a consortium of our banks and tell them, let's have an honest conversation. We want to do 100 kilometers. Let's just first do Naivasha to Nakuru. Our banks have that money. And let's come up with a payment model. Hata kama itakatwa from every receipt. The banks are happy to have that conversation. Hata kama itakatwa from every... I told you the solutions to the problems we have in this country are not outside of this country. You have a conversation with the banks, sit, form a consortium, agree. The same way you'd have borrowed from China. And let's agree, people will start saying funny things about local borrowing and everything. But I can tell you, as long as that is probably put on the fare, on the ticket, first is there will be economies. People will save because banks will not waste money. You will not hear that 1 kilometer is costing how many billions. It will change. We shall get it for the actual cost. And then now we put it on the ticket. So for every person who is traveling, there's something small that is going back to repayment. We can rebuild this country from inside here. By the way, forget the banks.
But that has to do with people stopping corruption.
Many Kenyans have stolen so much money. And it is stashed in... I tell people, if you go to Switzerland, these Swiss accounts you hear, that's what is building. That country has got nothing of there. Those are our monies. African presidents who stashed monies there and leaders. And then they die. And then they can't claim it. Let us start pleading with these people to start bringing that money back. There is so much money. And by the way, sikuna governor alishikwa na 12 million. That was just an example of how many of such leaders have got so much money hidden in their houses. And there's no money circulating.
And anyway, they donate in churches every Sunday.
Let's have a conversation around how we rebuild this country from monies that are stashed in people's houses.
Mm-hmm. While still on that trip, the president was caught bashing Tanzania, Uganda as being, what's the term? Low economies.
Least developed countries. And for us, we are not part of the least developed countries.
Yes.
We are on a higher bracket than they are.
What has that done to us and our neighbors? That statement, and diplomatically, what's the effect?
First and foremost, I did my undergraduate degree in Tanzania. There's nothing least development about Tanzania. That country is doing well. Tanzania is beautiful. Tanzania is wealthy. Tanzania is a good country. I think our head of state needs to realize one thing. The bulk of African heads of states are at home. By the way, they are working from their home offices. When you are doing all that English, trying to justify that Kenya is not least developed and Tanzania is least developed and Uganda is least developed, what you are doing is you are jeopardizing. By the way, who is Kenya's biggest trading partner?
Uganda.
Yes, not China. Uganda is Kenya's biggest trading partner. We get more money from Uganda than we shall ever get from China. Now, common sense dictates that If Yoweri Museveni calls William Ruto, and then the Chinese president calls William Ruto should rush to Uganda before he goes to China. Because we trade more with Uganda than we trade with Tanzania. We share a border with Uganda. If one of our countries was to have an epidemic, God forbid, like Ebola, it would hit us more. So if Uganda tells you, come for a private secret meeting, maybe they want to tell you they have an epidemic, it is more important to be in Uganda than to be in China 5 billion times. You need to ask yourself, look at the trade we have with Tanzania. We spend so much between ourselves. So let us not rush to those countries that we think are developed. We shall develop ourselves from within ourselves.
How do you think we're going to recover from that diplomatic tiff?
We'll never recover.
Because I do not want to imagine that Museveni or Samia Suluhu, president, will just let it slide.
They will. They may let it slide because they know who said it. You know, they also don't take President William Ruto seriously. They're just waiting for him to finish his term and go. I mean, he's all over making diplomatic blunders. All over. Why is Museveni not making diplomatic blunders? Why is Samia Suluhu not making diplomatic blunders? They've gotten to a place, they have separated Kenya from the president. They're saying, Wakenya ni wazuri, ni kiongozi hawana. That's what they're saying. That's why they are so kind to us. Do you know why Samia Suluhu has not responded and why they do not have a problem with us? It's because they know at Namanga border, the ordinary Kenya is literally probably planning to have a wedding on Saturday with another Tanzanian. They have crossed borders. In fact, they see the border as a hindrance. They love one another. They trade together. They have intermarried. They have children. They are partners in business. They are exchanging so many things together. They even help each other in harambes kufanya hospital bills. Then there's a president out there who wants to separate those two people. That's why Samia Suluhu is looking at the bigger picture. That's why she was asking one time when she came to our parliament here, the giraffes and the saurus and, the wild beast, they don't care which passport they have. They are not Tanzanian, they are not Kenyans. And so even for us, we need to learn 1 or 2 lessons from these animals. That artificial imaginary border is causing a lot of problems and it is bringing blessings to us.
Okay. Well, the thing actually the president was addressing is why a lot of investors are moving to those countries. So my question would be, do you think then as Kenya we have a plan to help these investors? I mean, maybe the tariffs in Uganda, Tanzania may be lower. Hence, even me as an investor, I would opt where it's easier to do business. So are we as a country working to fix this problem so that then someone in China wanting to set up will not come and choose that over us?
I think, first and foremost, the bulk of the people who've tried investing here, including Dangote, left because of demands for kickbacks. You come, you want to create 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 jobs. But someone is telling you, give me this amount of money before you start. That person leaves and goes to Tanzania. And they are told, first we'll give you land as government, we'll give you a lease. We will give you a tax holiday. You want to employ 5,000 people. They know once you employ 5,000 people, those 5,000 people will earn a salary. The government will tax the salaries of those people. Those people will start buying ostentatious goods. They'll start buying new shoes. All those things have got taxation on them. So Tanzania embraces investors. They literally hug them. They receive them with the respect. They give them power. Try getting a work permit today as a foreigner. Every day people calls me, Wakili, akinisaidia nipate work permit. I'm like, me I'm an investor. I want to invest $200 million. Can you imagine someone is begging to get a work permit and they want to invest $200 million? In this economy, I have lists of so many people. And they usually end up where? Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. That's where they end up. Something as simple as giving a work permit. Someone is coming and saying, I don't want to go through the back door. I want to go through the front door. Give me a work permit so that you know where I live and what I do. Help me. Now I want to set up a company. Put in $200 million. Then they end up being frustrated. Akivuka tu mpaka hivi, they get surprised. Oh, welcome, karibu Tanzania. They are welcome. They are made to have a seat. They are given land. They are given a work permit. They are allowed to flourish. They earn money. The economy. So Tanzania and Uganda are not flourishing because they are less developed than ourselves. They are flourishing because in terms of corruption, they are less developed. They have a lower appetite for asking for kickbacks. Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. And I hope the government is actually planning to fix that or have a plan. I don't know. I'm just hopeful. I remain a hopeful Kenyan. The other thing I'm trying to trace is, I don't know if you saw the post by, he's called Doan Chow, president at Vietnam Gas Energy Science. This post went round for so long. And he had listed of how he came, met, I think, Musalia Mudavadi and some other leaders. And for him, he discovered the biggest problem here is electricity because of the rationing that happens. But for me, besides all those, for me, the most outstanding statement from that was that they called the global window is closing, Asia isn't waiting. If Kenya and much of Africa wants a real economic future, they must turn off the microphone and turn on the power. We are big on this, speaking, but literally can't give the basics. When it gets to a point where someone of this stature is posting on LinkedIn, that's a wild space.
I'll explain to you why. Kenya manufactures about, 5 gigawatts of power. It was in that thing. And we are importing also some power from Uganda. Countries that are using common sense, like South Africa, is producing about 23,000.
But South Africa is even worse on matters power than us.
No, it's about how much power they are producing.
Yes.
About 23,000 gigawatts of power. Now, those are guys who experience winter. We are living on the equator. India is fast moving. In fact, they are moving from hydro to solar. Yet they don't have a good climate like ourselves. If Kenya was to start just encouraging households to use solar, we would free so much of our power to go into the national grid, and it would go to industries. When you hear a president going to a tour in Mount Kenya to launch a transformer and some power poles on lorries, it tells you exactly what they're saying, that we are big on the microphone and very little on delivery. Nobody wants to come and invest in a country that makes 5 gigawatts of power. In fact, it's 4 point something. But we are doing 5. Me, I'm giving them 5 because I'm hopeful. Nobody will come and invest here. You guys are joking. So if we want to promote manufacturing, hata hii 5 iko overworked. And remember, kwa hiyo 5 tume import from Uganda, some 0.7 or something. So what we need to do as a nation is getting the fundamentals right. And one of them, I would say, is to change the building code in this country. That no house will get an approval unless they can be able to demonstrate that a large fraction of their house will be powered from solar. Don't give an approval. What will happen is that so many people will invest. And by the way, let me tell you, once you taste solar, and I have tasted solar, you probably never want to go back to this other power. Let this other power become a backup, so that even out of these 5, we free the bulk of it to go for manufacturing. So it is possible, but again, it's leadership. When you have bad leadership, you'll keep complaining about everything else.
And when I saw that post by that gas president, I remember President Uhuru launched the Lake Turkana wind power, whatever thing, but there were a lot of politics about Zit Ketrako and putting the transmission lines and all that. But I understand, again, wind power is something that would change this country because that side has proper wind. And if, as you're saying, if we had proper leadership, then we'd be expecting to see results.
Let me tell you stupid things that happen in this country, and I call them stupid. The country, for example, plans for billions of shillings to do a dam. And then they plan to do that dam. They plan to do that dam first, purely for water only. Nobody thinks of marrying the dam with hydro. Rarely. You'll hear, hii ni dam ya maji. Itoe maji Nakuru, Aror, Kimwarel to supply to Nakuru. And you ask, it was easy when you already have a dam to add that element of turbines and power. Still on that line of water, they are planning to pump this water. Sasa watumie stima mingi na nini, and to pump this water from there to households. Whereas if you came up with a policy on building code and said, for every 3-bedroom house, you must have a storage capacity of at least 10,000 liters for us to give you an occupation permit. What would happen is that every house would, like now there's so much rain. It's like we have a contract with the Indian Ocean. All that water will go to the ocean. So if each house was told, you cannot, once you're getting approvals for construction, unless you show us that you have a plan to store X amount of water as a part of the cost of building, we will not give you the approval. Kenyans will start now naturally storing rainwater. Even if you don't drink that, you can use it to wash your car or feed your animals or do something at home, even wash the house and wash clothes and so on and so forth. So first and foremost, we must do that. Stop losing what is naturally given to us by God before we talk about water. And it's the same thing now with electricity and everything else that happens. So it's a question of leadership. It's a question of us asking the right questions. And that's what we are not doing.
Cool. Something interesting that's rather disappointing. During there was a Sunday, Labor Day is this week. So there was a Sunday, service for praying for workers. And out of all the things that the leader of Kotu said, Mr. Francis Atwoli, is that internet should be regulated because people are misusing it in Kenya. Again, we had this story with the CSICT a few months ago before he was appointed.
I'll just tell Atwoli that the CSICT tried. The young people donated here to him. They even made an airport on his head and did all sorts of things. Why do you want to regulate the internet?
Because he said China regulates.
No, and I will tell you why we should not regulate the internet. Did you know that that same internet is the one that brings out outstanding stories of a dog that went and found a child that had been dumped? And the dog, carries the child in its mouth. It's the only way, and takes it to the nearest neighborhood, and that child is saved. That internet is the same internet that has brought out stories of outstanding Kenyans who've done outstanding things for other people. Do outstanding things as Francis Atwoli, and people will bring you on internet for outstanding things that you do. But you go there and commit all sorts of atrocious things against Kenyans. And then when Kenyans talk about it, you say the problem is the internet. Shame on you. The internet is a medium. It's like money. It's like saying now you're going to ban money because money is being used to buy bang. You're forgetting the same money is used as sadaka. The same money is used to buy food in the supermarket. The same money is used to fuel cars. There is nothing criminal about money. It's how you use money. Yep. And so the question becomes, you see, the internet is a carrier of content. And that content is what is seen in society. The other day, the president spoke about those roads. Itoke Ramu, iende Modogashe, ipitie wapi. The internet became a carrier of that. If Atwoli today was to wake up and say, we have a fight with the government because we want minimum wages of the workers to be increased, the internet will be carrying that story of Atwoli demanding for. But you come and do atrocious things, horrible things, despicable things, and then you have a problem, and the problem is internet. Nobody wants to address the fact that it's you who did atrocious things and bad things to Kenyans. And when they highlight, you say that the internet is the problem. Shame on that kind of thinking.
Do you actually think they have a problem with the internet or the fact that they cannot now control information? Because you see now anyone...
They can control information. Just churn out the right information. Just do good things. That's what will be on the internet. You come and give children tear gas, that girls' school, Butere Girls' School, and then you want Kenyans to say you gave them what? Scorners. You give them tear gas. So the internet will carry the story of you giving them tear gas. You know, there's a time a politician donated a house for the late Dedan Kimathi's wife. The internet carried moving, beautiful stories of the late Dedan Kimathi's wife getting a house. So now we are here and we are complaining that the same internet that carried that beautiful story is the problem. You don't need to control the internet. Control your manners. Once you control your manners and the horrible things you do, then you will not worry what goes out in the internet. I mean, if I, Fanya Mambo, today, I start becoming a pedophile and going with all the small girls who are under 18, and then I start complaining that the internet is putting it out there, what I should have been doing is philanthropic works, and the internet will carry my philanthropic works. So Francis Atwoli, change what you're doing. Let what you're doing be something worthy of being carried on the internet. Then you will not have a problem with the internet.
Makes a lot of sense. And it's just a reminder to the government that there is no way you are not winning information war, because the young people have more information than you do. And times have changed. If you want to have value from it, just adjust, get yourself to understand.
And you know, to cut you, you know why they don't take them to court? Because there's a law that regulates what you should do on the internet. You know why they don't take those young people to court? Because what the young people are putting on the internet is true. I want to tell Francis Atwoli that on the day young people shall peddle falsehoods and, you know, outright a desire and a malicious effort to malign your name, I'll be the first to defend you. I wish you were saying this particular issue that was put in the internet, that is defamatory, that is malicious, that is untrue, that is meant to make us look bad. I would be the first to call on those young people and to tell them, shame on you because of doing that. But every time I ask them, what is that one bad thing the young people have put on the internet that is untrue? Wanakosa.
And maybe they should ask themselves the why.
Yes.
Yeah. Very interesting. On the political side of ODM, Professor Anyang Nyong'o, the governor of Kisumu, has decided to call out the president and say that he's taking Kenya back to the Moi Era and he's against devolution. And a few days later, Raila Odinga comes out and sort of makes a statement that aligns with that.
Raila Odinga listens to the population. And the bulk of the people are unhappy with his alliance with William Ruto. They are not unhappy with Raila the person. They are unhappy that he would actually go and work with William Ruto. That makes them very unhappy. And they keep voicing that. And that's why Anyang, Nyong'o and Orengo, because they are closer even to the people than Raila Amolo Odinga, given the nature of their work. And then you see now being governors, they are interacting with MCAs. You know, the good thing about most MCAs is that they live where they were voted from. You know, an MCA, the salary is not so much. So, mahali alichaguliwa ndipo anaishi. So that MCA goes to the county every day and they see the governor almost every other time. So the governor gets first-hand feedback from what's happening at the very rural areas. And the people in Orengo's place, Siaya, and the people in Nyong'o's place, Kisumu, are saying no. And so Raila Amolo Odinga would be unwise to come and say the contrary. And I thank him for coming and saying, I support what Orengo is saying, and I support what Nani is saying, Anyang Nyong'o. Yes.
Okay. Do you think we are going back to the Moi era, or was it too far-fetched?
This is worse than the Moi era, if you ask me. The Moi era, someone would die, and you would attribute it to Moi, you know, and then you would have a body to bury. Boom. This is an era where over 200 people are still missing, and it's business as usual, and it's okay. You're comparing the atrocious things that this administration has done to the Moi era. This is worse. This is the Moi era on steroids. You take the Moi era, you put steroids, then you get this administration. So it's just for the lack of a better comparison. But this is worse. This is worse.
Okay. Wow. I think we have to end it at that. There's just so much politics going on in this country. And all in all, I hope we can have leadership that actually gets its focus right and fixes the issues that the nation is facing. And with that, maybe your closing remarks to Kenyans in general.
I'd like to say it was on the issue of the Pope, and that's why I would like to close. I saw people are anticipating who will be the next Pope.
Yes.
And some are even saying it should be a black Pope. And some are saying, and sometimes I take time to listen to people, and sometimes I listen to the right people. So over the weekend, I had a chance to meet Senator Okiya Omtata, who is also a very staunch Catholic. And I want to give credit to him for these words, because they are not mine. I can come here and pretend to be the wisest guy, and I know these words. But it's something that the Omtata said. He said, are we looking for a pope in our color and image as Catholics? Or are Catholics looking for a pope who carries the image, conduct, behavior of Jesus Christ? And the answer is the church is looking for a pope who will be more like Christ. And a pope who is more like Christ does not have to be a white man or a black man. Can be an Asian, can even be a person from any race, can even be a Tutsi from Rwanda. But that pope needs to carry the character of Christ, the persona of Christ, and as close as possible, a godliness, because we are human anyway, but they need to be as close as possible to what you would want a person who is godly to be. So as people are waiting and hoping for a pope, let them not just insist on a black pope. Let them insist on a pope who has got the image of Christ in them, who mirrors the character of Christ, who behaves like Christ. Finally, on the same issue, and this again I borrowed from another Catholic priest who said the Africans are not aware that the oldest church in this country is about 125, 130 years old. The Catholic Church has been in Europe for over 2,000 years. So we are very young in that line. And finally, and most importantly, is that the highest office that a person can hold in the Catholic Church is that of priesthood. I didn't know that. And that is why when they're having their mass, during that part that they call consecration, you don't see a bishop and you don't see a pope. They all remove their ranks. They can't do that with their kofiyas. Breaking the bread and wine, they can't do that with their kofiyas. The bishop ceases to become a bishop. The pope ceases to become a pope. During consecration, they are all priests. When you look at the altar, you see priests. Why? Priesthood is the highest calling in the Catholic Church. And so what Africans should be marveling at is having many priests who are doing the Lord's work. Because at the time when it matters the most, the breaking of the bread and the turning of the wine into blood, the only thing that matters is priesthood. So what Africans should be working more on, and the whole world, is priesthood. Thank you.
Priesthood.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. I hope for the Catholics you have picked your part of that. And we actually wish you the very best we wish the Catholic Church the very best to the cardinals who will be going to vote. We're looking forward to experience both the black smoke and the white smoke, because that's what determines if we have a new pope or not. Over and above as Kenyans, may we get to that level of where the pope was a leader for all. I mean, he fought for the rights of every person, because every human being matters. May our Kenyan leaders get to a point whereby your spirits allow you to fight for the rights of every Kenyan, because every Kenyan matters. Yeah? Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.